Hello and welcome into another edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Kevin Hicks and I'm your lead beat writer for the Arizona State Sun Devils on SI. And I'm so grateful to be joining you today on this beautiful Sunday morning. And we are roughly 20 or so hours removed from the Arizona State men's basketball team starting and completing the mission of taking down the Utah Utes in the penultimate home game of the 2025-2026 season. Sun Devils won the game 73 to 60, overcoming a slow start to the game in which they trailed 14 to 5, 5 minutes into the game. Terrence Brown had has had two of his worst games of the season against Arizona State. If you are not familiar with Terrence Brown on a wider scale, he is one of the best scorers in all of college basketball. Utah has had a rough season, but Terrence Brown and Don McHenry have been absolutely massive pieces to their endeavors this season. And Utah was fairly competitive in this game. They got the deficit down to 4 points at one specific moment of the second half, but it ultimately wasn't enough for them. And I guess all you can ask from as being on the side of Utah, being a Utah fan, is that they have been a lot more competitive lately throughout the Big 12 gauntlet. I mean, they only have one win in their last 6 games now, but it's a big step up going from being plastered by 20 to 30 points to losing games in the 5 to 12 point range or so. Uh, that's really all I can say on the Utah side. On the ASU side, they did what they needed to do in this game. There still are a lot of what ifs, a lot of hypotheticals that you can look back to. And probably once the season ends, you will look back to and say, man, the season could have been a lot different if we had closed out these games. The Baylor game is one of those. If they had won the Baylor game and if they had taken down Utah, they'd be sitting at 16 and 13 right now with two major opportunities to pick up more season defining wins against either Kansas or Iowa State. If you win one of those games and win a game in the Big 12 tournament, you're probably looking at around a 50-50 shot of getting in, even with an 18 and 15 record or in that vicinity. Now you're probably going to need to beat both Kansas and Iowa State and then win a game in the Big 12 tournament. The tides have turned, and that's what we're looking at realistically. Or you win one of the last 2 games and you make a run in the Big 12 tournament, winning 2 or 3 games probably. So 18 to 20 wins is probably still the target. At 15 and 14, that means that you're probably only going to be afforded 1 or 2 losses, and the second loss is probably going to have to be pretty late in the Big 12 tournament. You're probably going to have to win the first game against an opponent like Baylor or Oklahoma State in a rematch. And then you're probably going to have to beat a team like right now, it's looking as if ASU will probably be around the 12 seed, which means you'd be playing the 5 seed in the second round. You're probably going to have to beat a team like a Texas Tech, possibly a UCF or West Virginia. Those two teams are creeping up the leaderboards on the standings or the standing leaderboard. We'll see. Everything will be figured out Saturday evening, Saturday night, I'm pretty sure. So interesting times ahead for Arizona State basketball. And I just wanted to take a brief look into what Arizona State has uh, ahead for them over the next few days. So Tuesday night, that's obviously going to be a massive, massive game. The Kansas Jayhawks get welcomed to back to Tempe for the first time since 2017. I believe it was the 2017-18 season where no, it was the 2018-19 season. So it was December 2018 Uh, Number one Kansas came into Tempe and lost. I believe the final score of the game was 85 to 77. That was the year that Lou Dort, Rob Edwards, and Zylan Cheatham graced the halls of Desert Financial Arena. And uh, Bobby Hurley has a pretty strong track record against Bill Self in Kansas. This Kansas team is very strong. They did lose by over 20 points to Arizona yesterday, but they have the potential number one pick in the 2026 NBA draft in Darren Peterson. They have a balanced team around him in Flory Bidunga, uh, Bryson Tiller, Melvin Council. There's a lot of good players around Darren Peterson. Obviously, Bill Self is one of the best coaches of this generation. It's going to be a challenge, especially knowing what we know now about Arizona State facing even more injury challenges, such as Mo Odom battling through a midfoot sprain right now. It's going to be an emotional night. It's going to be a night where I believe Arizona State will really bring their A game. It'll be a night where Arizona State fans get to see Darren Peterson play for probably the only time in his collegiate career before he makes that jump to the NBA. Um, it's going to be a fun night, and I will be there obviously for the final home game of the season. And then beyond that, Iowa State on Saturday. Iowa State just got beat at home at Hilton Coliseum against Texas Tech yesterday. That's their only home loss of the season, I believe. So they are very tough to beat in Ames. Uh, I still think they are beatable. I think they are vulnerable going into the game a little bit, but they're just such a well-oiled machine. Lipsy has been a phenomenal player. They have great depth. TJ Otzelberger is a really, really strong coach, especially tactically. And that's going to be an uphill climb on the road. If they were at home, I might feel a little bit better about the outcome of that game. But I think Arizona State does have a realistic chance to split the games. I think they do have a chance to win both, but it's an outside chance. I think Arizona State does have an opportunity to revive their season once again, but they are going to have to play some of the most focused basketball they have all season. They're going to need to put a consistent stretch together. They were putting together a bit of a consistent stretch with those wins against Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, but that didn't really last. They lost those two games in Texas in heartbreaking fashion, and that forced them to go back to the drawing board ultimately. Um, It's going to be an interesting next 2 weeks for Arizona State basketball. There's a lot of things that are going to be ultimately unpacked during this stretch. If Arizona State somehow goes on a miracle run, reaches the NCAA tournament, do you decide to retain Bobby Hurley, give him a 1 or 2 year extension before his contract expires? If you fall flat, let's say you lose your last two games of the season and you lose in your first game of the Big 12 tournament, do you decide to move on with expedience, get a jump start on your coaching search because the transfer portal opens very soon after the 2025-26 season concludes? Uh, do you start looking for a replacement right away if in that event there's a very strong likelihood that Creighton's Greg McDermott could be on the market in a week or two? Randy Bennett is probably going to the NCAA tournament, but St. Mary's has been an early exit over the last few seasons. He could become available. Josh Schertz from St. Louis, Jared Calhoun from Utah State, even Travis Steele from Miami, Ohio. Uh, there aren't a lack of strong options on the coaching market. The question is, does Arizona State have the opportunity to justify retaining Bobby Hurley for another season or two? And does Arizona State, led by Graham Rossini and Michael Crow, believe in the basketball program enough to continue pouring resources into it, upping resources, upping commitments. We shall see over the next several weeks. Until then, I will be continuing to cover Arizona State men's and women's basketball for Arizona State on SI. And thank you so much for tuning into another edition of the Sun Devils Insider podcast. I will see you with another episode tomorrow. Thank you so much.